Hi, and welcome back to our next advisory session where we're going to talk a little bit today about CSET. Now, last week, if you remember, we did some brainstorming, and there's not going to be any brains thrown around today, but you are going to be using some brain power to take a look at what you wrote and to come up with a good CSET paragraph today. Okay, so if you remember back to last week, Ms. Jurwitz and I were brainstorming the qualifications needed to be an ELA teacher. And the three big takeaways we came up with were education, certification, and brains. So for the purpose of writing a good CSET today, we decided to choose certification because there was the most support for that piece. Okay, so now we're going to ask you to take out your brainstorm from last week and go ahead and circle what you believe to be your strongest evidence for a good topic sentence.
Hey guys, Ms. Jurwitz here. Now that you've had a chance to go back, take a look at your brainstorm, pick out that most important evidence, what we're going to be talking to you about today is, again, using the CSET structure to help you with your body paragraphs. So you have your C, which is your claim, your S is your setup, your E is your evidence, and your T is your tie-in. So you're going to watch a quick video just to tell you a little bit more about the claim in detail.
Hey, welcome back. All right, well, it was a great video, wasn't it? Showed us what a claim is and what a claim isn't. You're now going to go to your note sheet today, and you are going to evaluate 5 statements based off what you learned in that video. We're going to determine, are they good claim statements or are they not? Go to your note sheet, go.
All right, guys, welcome back. So if you looked at the claims that you just went back and evaluated, if you said that claims 1, 3, and 5 were good, you would be correct. 2 and 4, however, do not work because they are either a direct quote or a specific fact.
When we were sitting down and writing our claim based on the example that you saw last week, we thought, how can we introduce the reader to the rest of the paragraph? And how can we look at our brainstorm and pull out the best traits? So we did focus on the trait of, Ms. Jerwitz, certification.
Certification, that's
Right?
absolutely what we were focused on.
So how about we go over our claim with you right now and take a look at it?
Okay, so our claim that we came up with was that in order to be hired as an ELA teacher at Appoquinimink High School, a candidate must have achieved highly qualified status in the ELA content area.
And we kind of said that because if you look back at our brainstorm, all of the traits that we listed were indeed characteristics, but this particular trait had the strongest support. That's why we chose it as the claim. Okay, now that we've introduced you to our claim and showed you an example, you are now going to use your best evidence to write your claim.
All right, so go ahead and turn to your shoulder partner, hey, and take a look at the claim statements that you both came up with, evaluate them, and see if they follow the tenets for a claim statement.
Hey, Mr. Failer.
Hey, Mr. Rush, how are you?
I'm great. Good to see you. Good to see you too. Mr. Failer, what are we doing next?
Next, we're going to look at the set. The S, again, is the setup. The E is your evidence. And your T is your tie-in.
Isn't he so smart?
Hopefully you realize that the E in evidence is extremely important. Without the evidence, you can't tie anything together and you can't set anything up, so it's really important to focus on that. Okay, so first let's revisit our claim. In order to be hired as an ELA teacher at Appoquinimink High School, a candidate must have achieved highly qualified status in the ELA content area. Okay, so now we need to think about what is our evidence that's going to tell us that we're highly qualified. Now, in the CSET, it does have the S listed next, but in order to set up your evidence, you actually have to have your evidence. So if you take a look at the example, this is our evidence. For example, in Delaware, ELA teachers must take the Praxis 1 basic test in reading, writing, and math and pass with scores of 175, 173, and 174 respectively. In addition, to be considered highly qualified secondary or high school, ELA teachers must also pass the Praxis 2 ELA content test with a score of 167. That's a lot of information, but it is factual data that supports our claim. So now that we have our evidence, we're going to think about going back and setting it up, telling us where it came from.
All right, so this is just a quick check-in to see how you're doing with everything. Okay, if you recall, you had to go back and pick out your strongest evidence. Okay, so make sure you've done that and that you wrote your evidence on the line that says evidence.
Okay, so once Ms. J and I had established our evidence, we now had to think about how are we going to set it up? So where did we actually get that evidence? We obviously have both taken the test and passed it, but we did go back to the Department of Education just to make sure that the passing scores were updated. Now, when you do your example and your setup, you're not going to have any data to research. You're going to be using personal experience, putting it in the context of what you've already done. So it will be a little different for you. And then when we move on and we do research-based or text-based, you're actually going to pull information right out of the book or the text.
So our setup, if you look at our example, is that highly qualified status can be achieved in one way, which teachers know as the Praxis 1 and Praxis 2 series of tests. All right, so the last piece of our CSET is our tie-in, our T. Okay, so our tie-in is really important for a couple of different reasons. The first thing that it does is that it is used to explain our evidence, to say what it means and why we included it, why it's important. The second part of our tie-in is that we tie it back to our claim. We connect all of the things together. Okay? When you're writing your tie-in though, you can't just say, oh, this is why this is important, or this is, because I said so. Okay? Tie-in doesn't work that way. You have to be a little more thorough in your explanation. You have to have at least 2 sentences so that you've really explained yourself. So we said that if a teacher passes this test, it shows the principal and the Human Resources Department that the teacher has a well-rounded knowledge of his or her content. Therefore, demonstrating proficiency in ELA content knowledge enables a candidate to be hired at great schools like Appoquinimink High School. All right, so if you take a look at our tie-in statement, you'll notice a couple things about it. Okay, the first part of our tie-in statement, we are explaining the quotation. We're explaining why the praxis scores are important, what they mean, who's going to be looking at it, how that kind of ties back to us being teachers. So then the second thing you noticed about our tie-in is that we're really tying it back to our claim. Okay, so we mentioned Appoquinimink High School as a reminder of that's where we work. Okay, we also talk about the fact that we're tying it to being a proficient ELA teacher, what makes us qualified for our job.
Okay, so now that you have seen us go through our CSET based on what it takes to be an ELA teacher at Appoquinimink High School, now it's your turn.
So again, you're explaining to us what it is that makes you qualified to be either at a future job or to be at the college that you want to attend.
So you're going to write a claim, a setup, evidence, and a tie-in. Make sure that you write incomplete sentences, and remember that E is extremely important. You need to make sure that you have your evidence before you set it up. Go ahead and give it a try.
CSET! You just wrote your first CSET paragraph. Mr. Phil is going to wrap it up for you.
Alrighty then, we're going to take a look at an example of a CSET paragraph for a student who's applying to a college. So let's start with looking at the claim. I believe I'm a strong candidate for this university because I've demonstrated great leadership at Appoquinimink High School. In this claim, both the words leadership and the phrase Appoquinimink High School focus our attention on what this paragraph is going to be about. Because I know that my evidence is going to involve my involvement in Student Government Association, I need to make sure that my setup introduces or leads into that topic. So let's take a look at my setup. While the average high school student rushes out of the school doors after hearing the final bell ring, I've spent the last 4 years in a leadership role in the club I care most about. In this setup, because I know my evidence beforehand, I know that I need to introduce to my reader what I have participated in for the last 4 years. Next, let's take a look at the evidence. As an active member of Student Government Association, I've progressed from being a classroom representative to the lead coordinator of fundraising for the sophomore class. This year, I helped raise $700 by holding a community car wash at school. I was responsible for organizing 15 volunteers to support Real Men Read. If we look at this evidence, we have clear, concrete facts. I have $700, 15 volunteers, and the fact that I transitioned during my sophomore year. If you take a closer look at the evidence, you should see specific details. $700, 15 volunteers, and a specific organization, Real Men Read. This clues the reader in that these facts are relevant and they're real. They can only apply to me. Finally, let's look at the tie-in. I believe that my involvement in student government illustrates that I am someone who is willing to take on the responsibilities of a leadership role in order to better my school community. Because colleges are looking for tomorrow's leaders, I believe I am the perfect candidate because I am just that. Someone who aspires to be a leader to help anyone in need. If we take a closer look at the tie-in, the first sentence analyzes my evidence and explains how it is relevant to the prompt. The second sentence brings the whole thought back together to the original prompt and connecting the idea back to Appoquinimink High School and my leadership role. If you decide to write about a job, your CSET paragraph might look something like this. Again, we're going to start with the claim. I believe I'm a strong candidate for the position of scooper at Rita's Water Ice because I'm extremely responsible. If we take a look at this, we know clearly what position that you're applying for, where you're applying for, and the quality that you believe you possess to qualify you for that job. Because I know my evidence is going to involve activities both inside and outside of school, I need to mention that in my setup. So let's take a look at it. Based on my experiences inside and outside of school, responsibility is second nature to me. So here we can see that my reader knows what to expect in the evidence. Now let's take a look at the evidence. As a student in Mrs. Apparicio's business class, I designed my own business to run at school and handled money on a daily basis. Outside of school, I currently babysit for my neighbor's children where I'm consistently on time and follow the caretaking directions provided by the parents to ensure safety of the children. So taking a second look at this evidence, we see not only the two examples, but what also specifically in each of them makes us qualified for this current job. Finally, let's look at the tie-in. Both handling money and following directions illustrate that I am trustworthy and professional. These qualities meet the expectations of responsibility required of a super scooper at Rita's Water Ice. Here we can see that we specify what is exactly required of both of those duties and how they relate to the current job. Also, with the last sentence, we bring the CSET paragraph full circle again, relating it to the claim by mentioning responsibility, the job position, and where we are applying.
All right. Today you did it. We reviewed how to write a great claim. We built an entire CSET paragraph. And you may have noticed some interesting colors. We're going to talk about that next week.
C.
S.
E.
T.
CSET! We believe in you! Later.
All right, so the last part of our setup.
I got nothing.
Good things about claim. Nope.
Okay.
Yep, there we go. Cheesiness is back.
All right. Yeah, you did it! All right! Way to go! Mr. Phil! S! See you then.